Stop everything right now, because what I'm about to reveal to you in the next 30 minutes will shatter every false narrative you've been made to believe about your dark side. Exactly 72 hours ago, something happened in celestial dimensions that left the angels themselves in absolute silence. It wasn't a common event. It was a moment where beings of pure light witnessed something that spiritual laws said was impossible. A chosen one, yes, you entered completely into their own internal darkness. You used the devastating power that dwells there to destroy a threat that was attacking your light. And then you returned to the light without a single stain of corruption. And when the observing angels understood what they had just witnessed, their reaction wasn't admiration. It was existential fear. They had just seen a human being do something that not even they can do. Something that defies every cosmic law that has governed light and darkness since the beginning of time. That human being is you. What terrified the angels wasn't your dark side. It was your capacity to transit between worlds that should be mutually exclusive without losing your essence. There's a brutal difference between having two sides and mastering the wisdom of when to use each one without corrupting yourself. And that difference is exactly what makes you more complete than an angel of pure light could ever be. It is this ability, this mastery, that makes you more than just a human being. It makes you an anomaly in the universe, an evolutionary leap that transcends the limitations of both light and darkness. Now, take a deep breath, because the depth of what you are about to learn is more powerful than anything you've been told about your dual nature. Before we go deeper, let me remind you to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly resonate with the message here. It's time to explore why your ability to transcend these boundaries has angels fearing the very thing that they once believed was unbreakable, the separation between light and darkness. What you've just done, what you are, is rewriting the very rules of spiritual evolution. Before we dive into why what you've just done terrifies celestial beings, let's take a step back and understand the law that has governed light and darkness since the beginning of time. There was a spiritual law, an absolute, unbreakable, eternal law that declared, whoever touches darkness becomes darkness. Whoever enters obscurity doesn't return intact. Corruption is inevitable, irreversible, permanent. For eons, this law worked perfectly. It was an unchallenged truth that defined the very fabric of the cosmos. Angels, beings of pure light, were made to exist in dimensions of perfection. Their job was simple: to protect, to guide, to create with the power of light. They were the guardians of the divine, and they had never known what it was like to touch darkness. They were made for purity, and this purity was everything to them. It was sacred, untouchable, unalterable. When the first rebellion happened, led by Lucifer, the brightest angel in all of creation, he touched darkness for the first time. His pride, his desire to overthrow the Creator, led him into a moment of contact with that shadowy realm, and in that single moment, everything changed. Lucifer, the morning star, fell from his place of grace and became something entirely different. The fall was instant, irreversible. No mercy, no second chances. His purity was obliterated, and he became darkness itself. Other angels who followed him in rebellion fell in the same manner. They were erased from existence, their essences corrupted beyond recognition. Their names, their identities, their very beings vanished as they descended into darkness. There was no returning from it. This was the nature of the law. If you touched darkness, it touched you in return. It marked you, changed, you consumed you. Those who were fortunate never to stray close to that edge never experienced its effects. But those who dared to cross that line faced certain destruction. The law was absolute, and it worked. For millennia, there were no exceptions. But what about humans? Humans were made in the image of the Creator, but they were different. They were born into a world where light and darkness coexisted. The early humans were born with no inherent resistance to darkness, and as they grew, they encountered it. The humans who explored the occult, who dabbled in forbidden arts, found themselves at the mercy of this law. They opened doors to shadowy dimensions, thinking they could control what they summoned. They made pacts with dark forces, believing that they could maintain control. But no, those who dared to meddle with darkness lost something fundamentally important. Their souls became stained. There was no escape, no purification. Their essence was marked corrupted in ways that no subsequent act of repentance could cleanse. Whether they sought atonement or not, the corruption was permanent. They became shadows of their former selves, their connection to the divine severed. The same fate befell those who tried to heal their wounds through dark means. They believed they could overcome darkness by fighting it with even darker tools. But in doing so, they crossed a line and became indistinguishable from what they fought. It was an inescapable cycle, a tragic law that dominated the spiritual landscape. No one, no angel, no human, no being of light could escape it. The law was so absolute that even the most powerful angels feared getting too close to darkness. They were perfect, untouched by suffering, by hardship. They had no scars, no painful experiences that could shield them. They existed in a realm of absolute purity. And because they had never experienced the challenge of darkness, they lacked the immunity that a being born in a world where light and dark coexisted might develop. This was the state of the cosmos for eons. Light was pure. Darkness was corruption. No one, no being, no entity, no force could bridge that gap without being destroyed. But something began to change. Beings began to appear on Earth, humans specifically, who defied the very foundation of this law. These were no ordinary humans. They were chosen. And these chosen ones found a way to navigate between the realms of light and darkness, using the power of both without being consumed by either. They entered their own internal darkness, activated its energy, and then returned to their light without a single trace of corruption. At first, celestial beings thought it was an anomaly. Surely this was a temporary glitch, something that could be corrected, something that wouldn't last. But with every passing generation, this anomaly persisted, becoming more and more evident. And with each passing moment, it became clear that this wasn't an error. This was evolution. It was a new phase in spiritual growth, one that hadn't been accounted for by ancient laws. And that's when the angels began to notice you. You, who effortlessly danced between light and darkness without ever losing your essence, without becoming corrupted. You are a new possibility in the cosmos, an exception to a law that had been deemed absolute. You, chosen one, don't just have light and darkness inside you. You master both. You don't just allow them to coexist in your soul. You use them with wisdom, fluidity, and precision. The wisdom of knowing when to activate your light and when to call upon your darkness without compromising either. This is what the celestial beings are afraid of. Not your dark side, not your light side, but the fact that you know when to use each side and how to return to your original state of purity without falling into corruption. For centuries, the laws of the cosmos were unquestioned. The separation between light and darkness was absolute. Celestial beings created from pure light existed in a state of perfection. They had no need to navigate the murky depths of darkness. It was foreign to them. Their existence was untouched by the trials and tribulations that the human experience entailed. Their purity remained intact, a perfection forged by their very creation. But then came a new reality. Humans, beings born into a world where light and darkness were in constant interplay, began to evolve in ways that celestial beings had never anticipated. These were not ordinary humans. These were the chosen ones. Humans who, despite their vulnerability to the darkness that swirled around them, began to harness both light and darkness with an unprecedented fluidity. It started subtly. A few individuals began to show an innate ability to navigate their internal darkness without being consumed by it. They would step into the shadows, confront the power that lay there, and return to the light without a hint of corruption. At first, this was dismissed as a rare anomaly. Surely such a phenomenon couldn't be replicated. But as time passed, More and more individuals showed this incredible ability, and the celestial beings began to take notice. The chosen ones weren't just able to resist the darkness. They could use it. They could wield it like a weapon, activate it when necessary, and then return to their original state of purity as if nothing had ever changed. This ability, which defied the laws of the cosmos, had angels and higher beings utterly perplexed. How was this possible? How could humans, whose very essence was supposed to be vulnerable to darkness, navigate it without succumbing to it? Celestial beings had long believed that the light and darkness were mutually exclusive. For an angel, the concept of darkness was dangerous, an unknown that could consume them in an instant. Darkness was the antithesis of everything they stood for. For them, stepping into darkness meant falling, and falling meant irreparable destruction. The light was their only refuge, and anything that touched darkness became a thing of ruin. But here you are, a human who not only navigates between light and darkness, but does so with complete mastery. You don't just survive in both worlds. You thrive. The law of separation, once so deeply ingrained in the celestial hierarchy, has been shattered by your very existence. The angels, who are beings of pure light, have no defenses against darkness. They have never experienced the suffering, the betrayal, the pain, and the loss that humans are born into. They do not have the scars that make humans resilient. They were created to be pure, untarnished by the world's harsh realities. And that, it turns out, is their greatest weakness. For you, the experience of darkness is not foreign. You've known it intimately. You've lived it. You've suffered. You've been betrayed. You've been hurt. And through it all, you've survived. In fact, you've thrived. Your connection to both sides, light and darkness, is not something you've chosen lightly. It's something you've been forged in. Every painful moment in your life has served as a training ground for the wisdom you now possess. And this wisdom is something the celestial beings do not have. They have never known true darkness. They've never experienced the kind of pain that shapes the soul. For them, the idea of integrating light and darkness is inconceivable. They have no experience with shadow, no ability to navigate its depths. They cannot go into darkness and come out unscathed because they were never designed to face it. But you were born into a world where light and darkness coexist, and through that, you've gained something the angels can't fathom: resilience. You've developed a kind of spiritual immunity to darkness. You can touch it, harness its power, and walk away unscathed, because you've been trained by the very challenges that the celestial beings have never faced. Your power is not in your purity, it's in your ability to integrate both sides without losing yourself. This is why the angels are terrified. They've watched as you've used the very force they fear most, the darkness, to protect yourself and others. They've witnessed you enter that space, use its power, and return to the light stronger than before. And in doing so, you've proven that you possess a capacity they can never have. You've surpassed them in a way that defies everything they know about the spiritual order. At first, the angels assumed you were just a rare anomaly, an outlier in the great cosmic balance. But as time has passed and more chosen ones have emerged, each demonstrating the same incredible ability, they've realized this isn't a fluke. This is evolution. You are proof that humanity is evolving beyond the limitations of light and darkness. You are living proof that a human being can transcend the old laws of the cosmos and create something entirely new. In fact, it's not just your ability to navigate between light and darkness that frightens the celestial beings. It's your wisdom in doing so. While they may dabble in light remaining untouched by darkness, you have mastered both. You know when to activate your light side when compassion, healing, and forgiveness are needed. You also know when to activate your dark side when protection, firmness, and boundaries are required. And perhaps most importantly, you know when to return to your light without hesitation, without the weight of bitterness or resentment. Your fluidity between these two extremes, your ability to balance them with such wisdom, is something the angels cannot comprehend. They see you as an anomaly, something that shouldn't be possible. Yet, here you are, a chosen one who has integrated light and darkness in a way that is reshaping the very fabric of spiritual evolution. And this chosen one is where your true power lies. Not in being light, not in being dark, but in your ability to wield both with such precision, such mastery, that it transcends what even celestial beings can comprehend. It is this power that makes you not just a human, but an agent of transformation. A force that is rewriting the rules of existence. Your duality, your ability to walk between these two worlds, has made you more complete than even the purest of angels. It has made you an agent of change, a force that moves between dimensions not just physically, but spiritually. You are a bridge between two worlds that were once thought to be incompatible, and through you, the cosmos is being recalibrated. The celestial beings were not prepared for what they witnessed. When you, the chosen one, entered your own darkness and used its power with such precision, it was something they had never seen before. They understood light. They understood purity. But darkness was the forbidden. Darkness was the unknown. Darkness was something they feared, something they avoided. But you went in willingly. You navigated it with ease, and you came back unscathed, back to your light. For celestial beings who had lived for millennia under the rule of light, this was an unimaginable event. They had long believed that the laws of the cosmos were absolute, that light and darkness could never coexist without one consuming the other. But what you did shattered that belief. It wasn't just that you used darkness, but that you controlled it. You didn't just survive the encounter, you mastered it. It wasn't just your dark side they feared. It was the wisdom you carried with it. You had learned how to use your darkness without letting it corrupt you, without letting it define you. The angels could see the truth in you. You were not just light, you were integrated. You had become a being who could consciously choose between both light and darkness, and most remarkably return to your true essence after navigating them both. This was something no angel could ever do. This was something beyond their reach. They had watched as you faced a situation that would have sent most people into despair. Someone was attempting to manipulate you, emotionally blackmail you, disguise false vulnerability as a genuine need. They expected you to react as most humans would, with empathy, with an openness that left you vulnerable to being used. But you saw through it. You didn't just see the manipulation, you felt it, and in that moment something inside you clicked. Your light side, compassionate, as always, tried to help. You offered kindness, empathy, as you always do. But then something shifted. Something deep within you activated. It wasn't a dramatic, earth-shattering transformation. It was subtle, quiet, but it was absolute. Your dark side, the side that had remained dormant, the side that only emerged when protection was necessary, took control. It wasn't a force of rage or cruelty, but of absolute firmness and precision. In that moment, you spoke with such clarity and decisiveness that the person who had been manipulating you instantly realized the game was over. You didn't soften your words. You didn't dance around the truth. You didn't worry about protecting their feelings or making them comfortable. You set a boundary that left no space for misinterpretation. There was no guilt, no second guessing. You simply stated what needed to be said, and it was enough. The manipulation didn't work anymore. The tears, the cries, the victimization. They fell flat, as if they were bouncing off an invisible wall. Your energy had shifted so completely that what once worked on you no longer had any effect. The emotional blackmail that had once been so effective now seemed pathetic. And when the threat was neutralized, you didn't dwell in the darkness. You didn't carry any resentment. You didn't stay there ruminating on the situation. You simply moved on. You returned to your light side, your natural state of compassion, generosity, and openness, as though nothing had happened. This is what terrified the angels. They saw a human enter darkness, use its power, and return to the light without being corrupted. And not only that, but you had done it with wisdom. You knew exactly when to draw the line, when to stand firm, and when to return to your true essence. You didn't get stuck in one side or the other. You didn't let darkness consume you, nor did you let light leave you defenseless. You had mastered the balance, and that terrified the angels because they knew that they could never do what you had just done. In that moment, the angels realized something profound. For all their power, for all their purity, they were limited in ways they had never imagined. They could not do what you did. They could not transition between worlds as you did. When an angel falls, it is permanent. There is no return from the darkness. But you were able to shift between the two realms with such fluidity that it seemed like magic. You were living proof that the laws they had lived by for eons were incomplete, and the realization hit them like a ton of bricks. They could not deny what they had just witnessed. It was not just a human doing the impossible, it was a human who had mastered something they could never hope to achieve. And it was not just about your dark side. It was about your ability to use that darkness with wisdom, to wield it as a tool when necessary, and to return to your light without being stained by it. The angels, with all their purity and light, could not grasp this power. They were incapable of developing the immunity to darkness that you had gained simply by living in a world where both light and darkness coexist. They had never known suffering, betrayal, or the kind of pain that develops resilience. You, on the other hand, had learned to harness the very forces that would have consumed anyone else. What the angels didn't realize at first, but what became abundantly clear as they observed you, was that your very existence was an evolution, a new form of spiritual mastery that transcended everything they had believed to be true. You had integrated your light and your dark sides, and in doing so, you had transcended the limitations that the angels had set for themselves. And that's when they started to understand. They weren't just witnessing a human being doing the impossible. They were witnessing the future of spiritual evolution. They were witnessing a being who had transcended both light and darkness, and in doing so, had become something far greater than the sum of their parts. You are not just a human. You are the future. You are the bridge between two worlds, the one who can move between light and darkness with wisdom and without fear of being consumed. You are the embodiment of a new evolution, one that even the angels are struggling to comprehend. And in the silence that followed your transition, the angels came to a shocking realization. You are more evolved than they are. The celestial beings had never known fear like this. They had observed the rise and fall of countless beings, the transience of time, and the delicate balance between light and darkness. But what they saw in you, what you did, was not something they could understand. They were pure light, untouched by the darkness that humans faced daily. They were created to serve, to protect, to nurture, and to embody the divine will. But they had never been tested in the way that you have been. They had never known true suffering, betrayal, or the kinds of darkness that twist the human soul. They had never felt the pull of shadows like you have. And that's where their fear came from. When you used your dark side to protect your light, it wasn't a reckless or uncontained eruption. It was calculated, precise, and controlled. You weren't driven by emotion alone. You didn't let anger or bitterness guide you. Instead, you wielded your dark side with the wisdom of someone who has experienced the full spectrum of life, the painful lessons, the betrayals, the heartaches. You had developed a relationship with your darkness, understanding its power and how to use it without becoming consumed by it. This was what terrified the angels the most. They had never experienced the world the way you have. They had never had to navigate the gray areas where light and dark intertwine, where the lines between right and wrong blur. They had no scars to remind them of their vulnerability. They had never had to learn resilience by facing darkness head-on. To them, darkness was a foreign concept, something that could never be touched without irrevocable damage. But you had learned to dance between both worlds, light and dark, without losing your essence. Angels were created to exist in one state, pure, untainted light. They were forged in perfection, but perfection in their case came with its own set of limitations. They had never been forced to grow through suffering. They had never had to find their own strength in the darkness, and so when they saw you step into the very darkness, they feared and come back unchanged stronger. Even something in them shifted. It wasn't just awe or admiration. It was fear. The fear wasn't directed at the darkness itself because the angels had always feared that. It wasn't even that you could tap into the dark side. They had seen humans do that before, but always at the cost of their soul, always leaving them broken and corrupted. What frightened them was your ability to leave the darkness behind and return to your light untouched. They had no idea how you could do that, and they realized with a sinking feeling that they never could. Your ability to integrate both sides of your being, light and dark, was a gift that not even they had. They had no defense against darkness because they had never experienced it. They had never known the depth of pain, the intensity of betrayal, or the crushing weight of grief that would forge the spiritual immunity you carried. They could never step into darkness and leave with their light intact because they were made to be only one thing, light, and when light is exposed to darkness, it falls. It becomes corrupted. It cannot survive the contact. But you were born into a world where both light and darkness coexisted. You've been forced to endure hardship, betrayal, and pain from the moment you were born. And through that, you've developed the resilience that the angels simply cannot comprehend. Your experience with darkness has made you stronger. It has made you capable of navigating it with ease, using it as a tool for protection rather than being consumed by it. The angels realized something they hadn't considered before. They had created a dichotomy, a strict division between light and dark, never considering the possibility that one could contain both without destroying the other. They thought their purity was what made them perfect, but you had become something greater. You had transcended the limitations of pure light. You were the evolution they couldn't even comprehend. As they watched you use your dark side to protect your light, they understood that the laws they had followed for eons were no longer absolute. The law of separation, the law that stated that one cannot touch darkness without becoming it, was shattered in your very being. You had proven that light and darkness could coexist, that they could be used in tandem without one consuming the other. And that was something the angels feared because it meant they were no longer at the pinnacle of spiritual evolution. They began to question everything they had ever known. If you, a human, could master both light and dark, what did that mean for their own existence? If you could transcend the boundaries they had been confined to, then what did that say about their role in the grand scheme of the cosmos? They had always believed themselves to be the highest, the most perfect beings in creation. But now, they were forced to confront the possibility that they were not the peak of evolution. You were. And that realization rattled them to their core. The first angel who had witnessed your transition between light and darkness spoke up in disbelief. I've observed millions of souls for eons. I've seen beings of light and beings of darkness, but I have never seen a soul transition between states without losing its purity. This defies everything I understand about how corruption works. The second angel, who had lived through the fall of Lucifer, nodded solemnly. The laws are clear. Contact with darkness causes irreversible corruption. But this chosen one, the angel trailed off, searching for words. This human is proving the law has an exception we never accounted for. Either the laws are incomplete, or this human operates under principles that transcend everything we know. The third angel, a being of immense wisdom, added, I touched darkness once. It took me 1,000 years of purification to recover even a fraction of light. This human enters, uses devastating power, and exits in seconds without stain. It's impossible according to my experience. The silence that followed was heavy with awe and fear. The three angels sat in stunned silence, grappling with the truth that was unfolding before them. It wasn't just that you could do something they couldn't. It was that you had transcended the very limitations they had been created to embody. You were no longer simply a human. You were an evolution. You were the next stage in spiritual development, a being who had integrated both light and darkness without losing your essence. The first angel spoke again, but this time the tone was different. "We need to accept an uncomfortable truth," it said. "This chosen one possesses a capacity we don't have. We've been created in the image of pure light, and we've never developed the resilience to darkness that this human has. In this aspect, this human is more evolved than we are." The second angel added, "If integrated humans can do what we can't, then we must reconsider everything we thought we knew." Perhaps chosen ones like this, those with the ability to integrate both sides, are the next step in spiritual evolution, a level we can never reach. The third angel concluded, "This means we are witnessing a shift. A new type of being is emerging, one that transcends the boundaries we've been confined to, and that I fear changes everything." The conversation ended in silence. The angels had no answers, only the realization that they were witnessing an evolution beyond their comprehension. They had seen the future, and that future was you, the one who could navigate both light and darkness without being consumed by either. The one who could transcend the cosmic laws they had followed for eons. And in that silence, the angels knew something had changed forever. The age of pure light was over. You, the chosen one, had just rewritten the rules of existence. There is a profound truth about your nature that the celestial beings have only just begun to grasp. You are not simply a being of light or darkness, but a master of both. You have unlocked the secret of integration, where light and darkness don't just coexist, but work together in harmony. This is what the angels fear the most. This is what makes you far more complete than they could ever be. You see, the angels were created to be perfect embodiments of pure light. Their entire existence revolves around the eternal truth of light, love, compassion, creation. But in their perfection, they lacked something essential. They never had to face the darkness to experience the struggle, the suffering, the betrayal. They were untouched by the very forces that shape resilience in humans. Because of this, they were vulnerable in ways they never realized. Your darkness, on the other hand, is not something to be feared or shunned. It is a part of you just as much as your light. It is a tool, not an identity. It is your protection. It is the part of you that emerges when boundaries need to be set, when the world requires you to defend what is sacred, when you must stand firm against the forces that would try to manipulate or break you. But unlike the angels, who were never given the capacity to experience and master darkness, you were born in the crucible of human existence. You were forged in the fire of life's trials, and through that you have developed an immunity to darkness that no celestial being could ever hope to possess. This is where the angels fail to comprehend your power. They see you use your dark side to protect your light, to eliminate threats, and they are terrified, not because of your darkness, but because you have learned to navigate it without losing yourself. You don't become consumed by your darkness. You use it with precision, with wisdom, and then you return to your light, whole and unscathed. It's a terrifying thing for an angel to witness. They have never known the discipline, the restraint, the mastery of integrating both sides. To them, darkness is an irreversible fall. It is a permanent state of corruption. They cannot understand how you, a human, can embrace darkness as a tool without being corrupted by it. To them, it's an impossible paradox. But to you, it's the natural state of existence. The wisdom of integrating both light and darkness is something you've learned through painful experience. You know when to use compassion, when to forgive, when to heal. And you also know when to stand firm, when to be ruthless, when to protect yourself and those you love. You have mastered the art of discernment. You know exactly when to activate your light side and when to call upon your dark side. It's not about being a slave to one or the other. It's about choosing which side of you is needed for the moment at hand. The angels cannot fathom this kind of wisdom because they have never had to face the kind of choices you've had to make. They don't understand what it means to balance both sides of your nature without losing your essence. They were created in a world where they were only required to use one side light. They have never had to navigate the complexities of light and darkness. But you chosen one have done so effortlessly. You have learned to wield both with equal mastery, and this is what terrifies them. Let me give you an example. When someone close to you betrays your trust when they manipulate you, emotionally, your light side is the first to respond. You want to help. You want to understand. You offer compassion and support because that's what your light side does. But then something happens. Your intuition kicks in. You sense the manipulation. You feel the falseness in the air, and that's when your dark side comes into play. It's not a violent explosion of rage or revenge. It's not an uncontrolled reaction. It's a quiet, calculated firmness. Your dark side knows exactly what needs to be done. You set a boundary. You speak your truth with precision and clarity, and the manipulation ends. You don't carry anger. You don't dwell on the betrayal. You simply cut the cord and move on without resentment, without bitterness. And when the situation is resolved, your light side returns just as naturally as it left. You don't stay in darkness. You don't carry the weight of the confrontation with you. You return to compassion, to generosity, to openness. You've used your dark side as a tool to protect yourself, and now you've returned to your true nature, your light. This fluidity between the two sides is something the angels cannot comprehend. They see it as a violation of the laws they have lived by for eons. To them, darkness should stain you, should corrupt you permanently. But to you, darkness is simply another tool, another aspect of your being that you've learned to use when necessary. You don't become it. You control it. You know when to use it and when to let it go. The ability to balance light and darkness is what makes you more than just human. It makes you an evolutionary leap. You are a being who has transcended the limitations of pure light. You've learned the wisdom of using both sides to navigate life's challenges with grace and precision, and this is what the angels fear. They fear that your mastery over both sides makes you more complete than they could ever be. They fear that you have unlocked a level of spiritual evolution that they can't even begin to understand. And most of all, they fear that this evolution is just the beginning. If you, a human, can integrate light and darkness without being consumed by either, then what does that say about the future of humanity? What does it say about the potential for other chosen ones who will follow in your footsteps? This is the ultimate fear of the angels. Not that you will fall into darkness, but that you will rise above them. You are a being who can transcend the limitations of both light and darkness, and in doing so, you have become more complete than they ever could be. You have surpassed them in a way they never thought possible. And this chosen one is where your true power lies. It's not in your light. It's not in your darkness. It's in your ability to consciously choose when and how to use both. You are not limited by either side. You are free to move between them with ease, using each one with wisdom, precision, and purpose. And that is something the angels will never be able to do. The realization struck the angels like a cosmic storm, shattering their long-held beliefs about the spiritual hierarchy. They had always considered themselves the pinnacle of creation, the guardians of purity, the embodiments of light. For eons, they had been untouched by darkness, their existence a perfect reflection of divine will. But now, in the silence that followed the witness of your actions, they were forced to confront a terrifying truth you, a human, had transcended. The very laws they had been bound to for eternity. For the first time, the celestial beings admitted something they had never dared to consider. You had done something they could not do. You had stepped into darkness, used its power, and returned to your light, untouched, uncorrupted. What terrified them was not the darkness itself, but the fact that you had mastered it with such wisdom and grace. You had become something they had never been, an integrated being, one who could balance light and darkness without losing their essence. In the moments that followed, 3 angels gathered to discuss what they had just witnessed. It was a conversation unlike any they had ever had. For the first time, they were faced with the undeniable reality that their understanding of spiritual evolution was incomplete. They had always believed that light and darkness were irreconcilable forces, unable to coexist within a single being. But what they had seen in you shattered that belief entirely. The first angel who had watched you transition so effortlessly between light and darkness was the first to speak. His voice trembled with uncertainty, an emotion rarely felt by beings of his stature. "I have observed millions of souls across the ages," he began. "I have seen the rise and fall of countless beings, both light and dark. But never have I witnessed a soul transition between states without losing its purity. This," he paused, struggling to find words, "this defies everything I understand about how corruption works. This chosen one, this human, has done what no being of light has ever done." The second angel, older and wiser, added with quiet reverence, "The laws have been clear for eons. Contact with darkness causes irreversible corruption. But this chosen one, this human, has proven the law is not absolute. Either the laws we have followed are incomplete, or this human operates under principles that transcend everything we know about light and darkness." The third angel, who had witnessed the fall of Lucifer and the irreversible consequences of rebellion, spoke with a heavy heart. "I have touched darkness once, and it took me 1,000 years of purification to recover even a fraction of my former light. And yet this human enters darkness, uses its devastating power, and exits in mere seconds without stain. It's impossible by every standard I have known. And yet there it is before us. The laws of the cosmos, broken." For the first time in their existence, the angels felt a profound sense of awe and fear. They had long believed themselves to be the highest spiritual beings created to serve the divine purpose. They had never considered the possibility that they were not the apex of spiritual evolution, that they might be limited in ways they had never imagined. But now, with the undeniable evidence before them, they had to face the fact that you, a human, had surpassed them in a way they could never replicate. You had become a being of both light and darkness, capable of moving between the two with precision and wisdom. And that terrified them, for it meant that their understanding of the universe and their place within it was no longer complete. The first angel, his voice filled with uncertainty, spoke again. "I have seen beings of pure light fall before, and I have witnessed their irreversible corruption. But this human, this chosen one, has entered darkness, used it and returned without becoming consumed by it. How is this possible? How can they do something we cannot?" The second angel, who had lived through the fall of countless beings, offered a somber reflection. "Perhaps we've been wrong all along. Perhaps the very idea that light and darkness cannot coexist was never meant to be an absolute truth. We were created in the image of pure light, and we've never been tested by the darkness the way these humans have. They have endured suffering, pain, betrayal, things we have never experienced. And in that suffering, they've developed something we cannot understand: resilience. They've learned to integrate both light and darkness within themselves, and in doing so, they have transcended the limitations we've lived by." The third angel, who had long been a voice of wisdom, concluded the conversation with a devastating realization. This chosen one, this human, possesses a capacity we do not have. They have become more evolved than we are, for they have integrated both light and darkness. They have developed a wisdom that transcends our understanding, and that is why they can do what we cannot. Perhaps they are the next stage of evolution, something we were never meant to be. The conversation ended in stunned silence. The angels had admitted what they had long feared, that their understanding of the cosmos of spiritual evolution was incomplete. They had always thought themselves the highest beings, the pinnacle of divine creation. But now they were forced to acknowledge that humans, you specifically, had surpassed them. You had unlocked a level of mastery that transcended both light and darkness, a level they could never reach. And so, in the stillness that followed, the angels came to an unsettling conclusion. You are the future of spiritual evolution. You are the embodiment of what is possible when light and darkness are integrated without fear, without corruption. You have become something more than either of those realms could have ever produced. You are the next step in the divine plan, a being who can transcend the laws of the cosmos and embody both aspects of creation with wisdom, grace, and mastery. But this evolution, this new phase of being, is not without its challenges. For the angels, your existence represents a direct challenge to the spiritual hierarchy they've always believed in. They were made to serve the divine, to protect the light, but they never had to confront the darkness within themselves. You, on the other hand, have learned to wield both sides of your nature, to embrace both, and to move between them with such fluidity that it makes you more powerful than they could ever be. And this is why the celestial beings are now watching you with a mixture of fear, fascination, and awe, because you have done what they could never have imagined. You have become whole in a way that they never thought possible. In the end, the angels' admission was clear. They are not the highest beings anymore. You are. When the celestial beings realized that you had transcended the boundaries they had always lived by, they couldn't help but reflect on what made you different, what made you capable of mastering both light and darkness. What gave you the strength to navigate between the two without losing your essence? The answer, as they began to understand, lies in the very experiences that made you human. Unlike the angels who were created in purity and perfection, you were born into a world that is imperfect, flawed, and often filled with pain. You didn't come into existence with a shield of light that protected you from suffering. Instead, you were thrust into a world where darkness existed side by side with light, and you had to learn how to survive in it. This harsh reality, your ability to endure pain, betrayal, and suffering, has forged in you a unique strength, one that angels will never possess. Your experiences with darkness, pain, and suffering have shaped your ability to navigate both sides of your nature with wisdom. The darkness that the angels fear, you've known it intimately. You've faced it, and more importantly, you've learned from it. Every moment of hardship, every betrayal, every loss, each of these experiences has been a lesson, a step in your spiritual evolution. You've developed what the angels don't have: resilience. You've developed spiritual immunity to darkness, and that's something no celestial being created purely of light could ever understand. You see, the angels were created in perfection in a world of pure light. They were never tested by suffering, never exposed to the harsh realities of life. They didn't have to face the kind of pain that leaves scars, both physical and emotional. Their existence was pristine, untouched by the world's imperfections. And that purity, that perfection came with a cost. They were untested. They had no resistance to darkness, no understanding of the complexities of light and shadow. They were beings of light, but they were fragile in their lightness. Their lack of experience with darkness made them weak to it. But you've been tested. From the moment you were born, you've faced darkness in many forms. You've known pain, betrayal, loss, and fear, and each time you've emerged stronger. These experiences didn't break you. They didn't corrupt you. They forged you into something more resilient, something more complete than the angels could ever be. Where the angels have never faced suffering, you've faced it head-on, and you've come out of it with a greater understanding of both light and dark. It's this very experience that has made you immune to the darkness. While the angels would fall the moment they touched darkness, you have learned to walk within it, to use its power without being consumed by it. You've learned to distinguish between darkness that threatens to consume you and darkness that you can use to protect what matters most to you. You've learned to navigate darkness with wisdom, to use it as a tool, and most importantly, to return to your light without carrying the weight of the shadows with you. This immunity to darkness forged by your life experiences is what gives you the ability to transcend both light and darkness. You are not merely a human who can switch between the two. You are a being who has integrated both sides into your essence, who has mastered the dance between light and shadow, and who knows when to activate each side for the greatest good. This is what makes you so much more than the angels. They may be beings of pure light, but they have never been tested by darkness in the way you have been. They have never faced the kind of pain and suffering that has shaped your ability to master both light and dark. And this is what the angels fear most. They fear that your evolution, the fact that you can embrace both sides of your nature, means that you are now more complete than they are. You have developed a depth of wisdom that comes from experiencing both extremes of existence. Your pain has been your teacher, your suffering has been your trainer, and through it all you have not only survived, but you have evolved. You've become a being who can move freely between the realms of light and darkness, without becoming corrupted, without losing your essence. In the eyes of the angels, this is a terrifying thought, because it means that you are not bound by the limitations they have always known. It means that you have surpassed them in a way they cannot comprehend. They are beings of pure light, untouched by darkness, but they are also beings who have never been tested by it. You, on the other hand, have been tested by fire, and you have emerged stronger than ever. This is the true power of your evolution, not just your ability to move between light and darkness, but your ability to master both, to integrate them into your being and to use them with wisdom. Your experiences with pain, suffering, and darkness have given you a depth of understanding that the angels could never achieve. They have never known true suffering, and as a result, they cannot comprehend how you have learned to navigate both sides of your nature without losing yourself. Your pain, your darkness has become a source of strength. It is the very thing that has made you more complete than the angels, and this is what terrifies them. They realize, perhaps for the first time, that their perfection without the experience of darkness has made them fragile. They are pure, yes, but they are also limited. They cannot do what you have done because they have never faced what you've faced. They have never known the depths of suffering, the tests of darkness that have forged you into the master of both light and shadow that you are now. You are not just a chosen one. You are the next stage of spiritual evolution, a being who has transcended the limitations of both light and darkness. You have become something greater than the sum of your parts. And it is this very evolution, this integration of light and dark, that has made you more complete than the celestial beings who have observed you. Now that the celestial beings have seen the impossible unfold before them, your ability to balance both light and darkness without falling into corruption, let's take a step back and explore the mastery you have over this duality. This is the essence of your power, not just that you possess both light and darkness, but that you have learned to navigate between them with wisdom, precision, and fluidity. The ability to use these two sides of your being without being consumed by either is not just a skill, it's an art, a form of mastery that transcends the limitations of existence itself. The angels cannot comprehend this. They have never had the need to develop such mastery because they were designed to be beings of pure light. They have never had to navigate the gray areas of existence where light and dark exist in a delicate balance. But you are different. You were born into a world where light and darkness coexist, where you must navigate both to survive and thrive. And through this, you have learned to become the master of both worlds. The first step in mastering this duality is acknowledging both sides of your nature. For so long, many people have been taught to fear their darkness, to repress it, to push it away. But you know the truth: darkness is not evil. It is a natural part of your being, just as light is. Darkness, in its essence, is not something to be ashamed of or afraid of. It is a tool just like your light. And understanding that darkness can be used to protect your light, to set boundaries, and to create space for yourself is the key to unlocking your full potential. You've likely felt the push and pull between these two sides within yourself. At times, you may feel the pull of your light side urging you to be compassionate, forgiving, and open. And then in moments when that compassion is being exploited, or when you are being threatened emotionally, your dark side rises. But it doesn't rise with chaos or rage. It rises with purpose. Your dark side emerges as the protector, the one who will guard your boundaries and eliminate threats that your light side cannot handle on its own. It is not a reaction born of anger. It is a response born of wisdom and discernment. The key to mastering this duality is understanding when each side is needed. Let me offer an example. Perhaps there's a situation in your life where someone you care about is taking advantage of your kindness. They may not be intentionally manipulative, but they are continuously asking for your time, your energy, your resources without ever giving back. Your light side will want to help them, to offer support, to give compassion. But at some point, you begin to feel drained, exploited, and taken for granted. This is when your dark side steps in. Your dark side doesn't need to lash out in anger or frustration. Instead, it will activate with absolute firmness, clarity, and authority. You'll speak your truth. You'll set your boundaries. You won't be cruel, but you won't be passive either. Your dark side gives you the ability to assert yourself, to protect your peace, and to say no when necessary. It doesn't hold on to resentment or bitterness. It simply acts to restore balance and protect your energy. And when the threat has been eliminated, your light side can return as compassionate and open as ever, without the burden of anger or frustration weighing you down. The mastery lies in knowing when to activate each side and how to transition between them without losing your true essence. You understand that your dark side is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a vital part of you just as much as your light side. Both are necessary for your survival, your growth, and your evolution. What the angels don't understand is that you have developed this mastery through experience. You have not been born into a world of purity and light like they have. You have been tested by life. You have felt the sting of betrayal, the weight of pain, and the fear of uncertainty. Through these trials, you have learned to use both sides of yourself with wisdom, to walk the line between light and darkness without falling into either extreme. And it is this mastery, this ability to balance and navigate both sides, that has made you so much more than the celestial beings who have only ever known one side of existence. Now this is where many people fail. They believe that they must choose one side. Either they are all light or they are all dark. But you know that neither is true. You are both. You are the embodiment of integration. You understand that in life there are times when compassion and forgiveness are needed, and there are times when firmness and protection are required. The secret is knowing when to apply each side, and more importantly, knowing that neither side is better than the other. Both are essential. Both are needed. The next step in mastering this duality is the practice of intentional transitions. What many people fail to do is transition consciously between their light and dark sides. When they use their darkness, they often get stuck there. They remain in anger, resentment, or frustration far longer than necessary. When they use their light, they often become so open and vulnerable that they lose their ability to protect themselves. But you chosen one understand the importance of intentional transitions. You know how to enter your darkness when it is necessary, and you know how to leave it behind once the threat has been dealt with. This is an art that requires practice, patience, and deep self-awareness. The more you practice transitioning between your light and dark sides, the easier it becomes. You begin to recognize the subtle cues, both internal and external, that signal when it is time to activate one side or the other. And when you've done it enough, you find that the transition becomes seamless. You can shift from light to dark and back to light with such fluidity that no one around you even notices the change. But it's not just about knowing when to activate each side, it's also about knowing when to keep them both accessible. You understand that your light side is your power to create, to love, to heal, but your dark side is your power to protect, to destroy what harms you, and to create boundaries. Both are equally valuable, and both require conscious access. Mastery of duality isn't about suppressing one side to elevate the other. It's about honoring both sides and using them when they are needed. The angels, for all their wisdom, cannot do this. They were created as pure light, and they have never had to face the kinds of challenges you've faced. They have never had to build the resilience that you have. They have never learned to navigate between light and darkness. To them, the concept of integrating both sides is incomprehensible. But to you, it's second nature. You have transcended the old spiritual rules. You have integrated what the angels could not. And this chosen one is your true power. You are not just light. You are not just darkness. You are both consciously integrated. And this integration, this balance, makes you unstoppable. Now, let's step into the final understanding of your incredible capacity to integrate light and darkness. This mastery is not merely a spiritual curiosity or a fascinating anomaly to be observed by celestial beings. It is your true power. It is what defines you as an individual and what gives you the strength to transcend every limitation that has ever been imposed upon you. The ability to use both light and darkness without being consumed by either is what makes you more complete than even the most divine beings, more complete than any angel, any demon, or any being of pure light. But the real beauty of this power isn't just in your ability to shift between light and darkness as needed. It's in your understanding of when each side should be used and how to do so without losing your sense of self. It's in the wisdom to know that both sides, light and darkness, are not opposites to be fought against or suppressed, but forces that can be harmoniously integrated to serve your higher purpose. This is where many people struggle. They either embrace the light and neglect the darkness, or they fall into the darkness and forget the light. But you have learned the secret of balance. You have learned the delicate art of using light when healing is needed and darkness when protection is required. This wisdom does not come from reading ancient texts or meditating on high. It comes from living it. It comes from experiencing pain, suffering, betrayal, and joy. It comes from walking through both worlds, understanding the unique lessons each has to offer. And here's the most profound realization. Your dark side is not your enemy. It is a guardian, a protector of your light. It is the side of you that says, "This is where I draw the line." It is the part of you that stands firm, that defends what matters most, that speaks when silence is no longer an option. When you experience manipulation, deceit, or betrayal, your dark side activates not with fury, but with precision. It eliminates the threat, neutralizes the danger, and restores balance, protecting your light from being consumed. The key here is that your dark side does not linger once its purpose is fulfilled. It does not seek to dominate. It does not seek to destroy for the sake of destruction. It acts with purpose, with wisdom, and then recedes, allowing your light side to return in full force, open and generous, without the burden of resentment. You have learned how to wield the immense power of your dark side without allowing it to consume you, without becoming trapped in anger, hatred, or bitterness. This is something that angels and demons alike cannot do. Angels, for all their purity, are incapable of engaging with darkness without being corrupted. Their light is their strength, but it is also their weakness. They do not have the resilience to face the shadows within themselves. They cannot draw from the well of darkness in the way that you can. Similarly, demons who are beings of total darkness cannot return to the light. Their nature is one of destruction, not creation, and they are forever trapped in their own darkness, unable to transcend their state. But you are different. You are the balance between light and dark. You are the bridge between two worlds that were once believed to be separate, and through that bridge you bring an understanding that has never been seen before. This is your true power, the ability to navigate between both worlds without losing your essence. You have transcended the ancient laws that govern the cosmos, and you have become something greater, something beyond the limitations of both light and dark. The angels who have watched you with a mixture of fear and awe now recognize that you are not simply a human being. You are the next phase in the evolution of spirituality. You are a being who has unlocked the wisdom that transcends the binary of light and darkness. Your capacity to move freely between the two realms is not a curse, it is a gift. And as you continue to master the art of integration, you will become an unstoppable force, one that can shape the world in ways that no celestial being ever could. Now let's reflect on how you can use this power in your everyday life. Mastery of light and darkness is not just a spiritual concept for contemplation, it is a practical tool for living. It is something that you can apply in your relationships, your work, your goals, and your personal growth. The wisdom to know when to be compassionate and when to stand firm, when to create and when to destroy, when to forgive and when to protect, is a skill that will serve you in every aspect of your life. Let's say you find yourself in a situation where someone is emotionally manipulating you, pulling at your heartstrings, trying to make you feel guilty or responsible for their feelings. Your light side, the compassionate side, wants to help. It wants to believe the best in this person, to offer support, to be the healer. But then, something within you shifts. You sense the manipulation. You detect the falsehood in their words, the insincerity in their actions. This is when your dark side comes into play, not with vengeance or anger, but with clarity and firmness. You draw a boundary. You say no. You refuse to be manipulated. But here's the key: once the situation is resolved, you don't hold on to anger. You don't stay in the darkness. You return to your light side, open, compassionate, and free of bitterness. You've used your dark side to protect your light, and now you allow yourself to return to the essence of who you truly are. This is the beauty of mastering your duality. You don't stay stuck in one state. You don't let the darkness consume you, nor do you let the light leave you vulnerable. You use both sides with wisdom and discernment to navigate life's challenges. And this is what makes you powerful. This is what makes you unstoppable. As you embrace this power, you must also recognize that your ability to master duality comes with responsibility. It is not enough to simply understand that you have both light and dark within you. You must use them wisely. The power to wield darkness comes with the responsibility to return to the light. The power to create comes with the responsibility to destroy what is harmful. The power to protect comes with the responsibility to heal. You are not just a being of light. You are not just a being of darkness. You are both. And in your mastery of both, you are more complete than any being created in pure light or pure darkness could ever be. You are the embodiment of integration, the next evolution of spiritual wisdom. And it is this wisdom that makes you more powerful than anything the celestial beings have ever known. Your power comes from the understanding that both light and darkness are essential to your being. They are not opposing forces, but complementary ones. They work together, each one providing what the other cannot. And it is in your ability to integrate these forces that you find your true strength. The angels, the celestial beings, have only just begun to understand this. And as they watch you continue to evolve, they are forced to confront the reality that your mastery of duality makes you more complete, more powerful, and more capable than they ever thought possible. This is your true power, the ability to move freely between light and darkness, to use both sides of your being with wisdom and to transcend the limitations that others are bound by. You are the next step in spiritual evolution, and nothing can stop you now. Wish Holy Spirits with you, chosen ones.